Scrap the Japs is a Popeye cartoon from 1942. It's a famous studios cartoon directed by Seymour, Kneitel and Thomas Johnson. We have a voice cast including Jack Mercer as Popeye, and as soon as I read the title for this, I knew what this was going to be about. Well, I knew the basic concept of what it would be about, and I proceeded with caution. And yep, some of the animation is absolutely diabolical. Some of it's quite good fun, some of it's very well done, but the overarching concept is really uncomfortable. But as a piece of history, not as a piece of entertainment, but as a piece of history, it is worth checking out. This is an anti-Japanese war film. It was released in 1942, and needless to say, the depictions of the Japanese characters are very, very stereotypical. It starts off with Popeye doing some cleaning, and then he goes up in an airplane, and I like the plane design. I thought that was quite good. In fact, all of the animation, apart from the animation of the Japanese characters, was quite satisfying. Absolutely no problems there at all. We have a nice amount of detail without things feeling too busy, and Popeye goes up in his plane, and for the most part, he's facing off against one Japanese pilot. And I mean, it's an interesting enough concept. The Japanese pilot has a fake cloud, and Popeye is on the other side of the fake cloud. And yeah, the animation of the cloud looks quite good. I have no problems with that. A makeshift cloud, fun enough concept. But Popeye obviously wants to win this fight. And I won't spoil the ending. I won't say how it ends. I won't give everything away. But, well, it gets points for creativity, but then loses points for being awkward and uncomfortable. But as I said, as a piece of history, it is important. And it is definitely important to look at depictions at the time and to understand why, well, first of all, to understand why this is just never okay to lean into such over-the-top stereotypes, but also to understand why the attitudes at the time were like that as well. So as a piece of history, I guess Scrap the Japs is interesting, but it's not entertaining because it's awkward and uncomfortable. The animation, for the most part, absolutely fine. The pacing of the story, very, very well done as well. We get a little bit of time with Popeye on his own before he goes up in the plane, and the rest of the narrative continues. Everything else, absolutely fine. It is simply the depiction of the Japanese characters. Yes, on the one hand, it's an anti-Japanese war cartoon, so I understand why they're depicting the enemies in such a way. But at the same time, watching it today, that doesn't mean it's very comfortable. So, historically fascinating. Not something I'd watch just for the entertainment. But if you're a Popeye fan, or indeed interested in how certain individuals were portrayed or depicted at the time, then yeah, it's worth watching for an educational historical aspect. But that being said, I would be very surprised if I ever watch this one again. Some great animation, decent narrative in terms of the pacing, but it's just awkward. Scrap the Japs has its positives, but ultimately, as a piece of history, it's interesting. As a piece of entertainment, it's not great.